called the keto life.
Oh, even then, I don't know if keto can do that for you. Unless
Keto life puts your body into ketosis.
Yeah. The beauty about keto is the heavier you are, the faster it's going to come off, but you're going to plateau at some point. That's the downside of keto.
Keto life emulates what the keto diet does for your body. Multiplies it by 3 times.
It sounds like I don't know if that's necessarily true. Yeah. I think that was probably like one case study, and then they said, "Oh, keto's the best." But anyway, let's get started here. So we didn't put out the podcast last week on YouTube because, as you guys know, banned, but it's still on Spotify. So go check that out if you haven't seen it yet. This is the first one back on YouTube, probably edited if you are watching it on YouTube. If not, episode 25 will be on Spotify, the full thing. And that's pretty much it.
You're not back on?
No, we are now, but last week's podcast, I just put to Spotify because I couldn't put to YouTube, and at that point, there was no point in editing it down for like a Thursday or something, so I just left it as is. So, what's going on? Oh, are we having technical difficulties, Mom?
Yeah, I saved all my articles, and they're not in there.
Ooh, darn it. I mean, I have them, so
no,
I have them.
Pull them up as I'm reading them, and I don't know why they're not in there.
Yeah, I don't even know where to start this week. It's kind of been not a dull week, but like a little bit of everywhere. A little bit. I feel like most of this stuff is entertainment news. I mean, I guess we could start with. Let's see. What's in mine? I don't have really any political ones, but we were just talking about. Let's start with this one. Let's work backwards, Mother. Let's work backwards because you were just talking about keto, and I just saw over 80% of adults don't meet U.S. strength guidelines. Don't forget these muscles. So it's kind of interesting because what?
Isn't like 30% of people obese in this country?
I think it's more than 30. Yeah, but obesity.
Of course they can't meet the strength. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, but I always hate. I think I talked to Kenny about this, but the obesity levels like don't make any sense. The ratio has to be reworked, and no one's ever reworked them. It's like.
What does that mean?
The Rock is considered obese because of his height to size ratio. He's 6'4", 250. That would be obese.
I can see him walking around Disney World with a chicken leg.
Yeah, so that's why the obesity counter doesn't really make sense. Like the body,
But how can he be obese? What could his body mass index possibly be? There's fat.
That's what it is though. It's not based on your body mass index. When they say obesity, they go by height to weight. So to your point,
and your
the
age
obesity,
and your gender, yeah.
your BMI, that's what you should go off of, and that's what doctors say. But if you actually did like a United States, how many people are obese, it doesn't go by that, even though it should. It's actually based on height and weight. There's a whole chart for it. It's super. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, I'd be perfectly fine if I was 5'8".
Yeah, exactly. Americans. How many Americans are obese? Like 41.9%.
There you go.
Yeah. But again, it's based on height and size.
Put my article somewhere. I have no idea where it is.
And plus, these are a little skewed because of COVID. COVID obesity may increase. Hey, that's not news. That's
We don't even say it.
We don't even say the C word anymore on YouTube.
Don't say C. We don't say E.
Yeah.
Don't talk about the E. We don't talk about the Z.
Thanks, YouTube.
Yeah.
But yeah,
great country.
So these are the muscles that people don't strengthen, which are pretty important muscles. The brain. Oh, good one, Mom. So would you like to take a guess which muscles people don't use?
Core.
Nope. Well, yes, technically. Right, here, I'll give you the 5, and I want you to take a guess what body part this is. So your obliques. Where are the obliques, Mother? Give everyone a lesson.
The obliques are the side of your stomach?
Yeah, this muscle right here. That's why when people
not on the side in the middle?
It starts here, it goes around to the sides.
Okay.
So the problem with strengthening your obliques is it makes you wider.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't want the wideness, but your obliques help your back. Grip strength.
Your hands.
Grip strength. What's an exercise to help strengthen grip strength, Mother?
Those pincher things.
That works. Yeah, they're not the best for it because usually those are like 5 pounds, but
And snapping walnuts.
snap it. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Farmer's carries is a good one. Glutes. People don't work their glutes.
Glutes are the rear end.
Glutes to the rear end. People say do glute bridges. I don't like glute bridges. That's when you That's like when you lay on the ground and you kind of use your hips to thrust upward.
You don't need glute anymore because we have the BBL.
The BBL, the Brazilian butt lift.
BBL is very in right now.
Yeah. So glutes. If people do, really the only way to strengthen your glutes. Not really the only way, but a lot of women do hip thrusts with the bar. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but they'll.
Yes.
Right. What people fail to mention is that if you do too much weight, which a lot of women do because the body can do the weight, but you're not really hitting that muscle at a certain weight. And what ends up happening is you get hip dysplasia because,
Ooh.
yeah, you got to be careful with
Like
that.
a doggy.
So, yeah, so ladies, careful. Rotator cuff.
That's your shoulder.
Rotator cuff. Standing row. Yeah, I mean, any rowing is going to help. Any swim of rowing. And your posterior delts, mother. Where's the posterior delts?
Your deltoids, aren't those in your chest usually? Your deltoids.
Right, so if it's
Posterior would be behind you or your rear end.
It would be your back.
Back ones.
So
okay.
it's the little string of muscles that goes across the back.
Yeah.
Those you could do with any back exercise. You don't really have to do anything specific. Usually any back exercise is going to really work those anyway.
Rowing is very good for those too.
Yeah, exactly. That's a back exercise. But what's interesting about this, right? If you notice, all of these are. I have them on. Don't worry about looking for them.
I like reading them as I'm looking at them.
Yeah, but people want you paying attention.
I'm listening to you. I'm feeding you information.
Everyone's gonna be like, man, your mom doesn't even really pay attention.
I am paying attention. I can multitask.
So what's interesting about all those is, except for grip strength, notice how it's all lower back and back exercises. People don't strengthen their back enough. And what's the number one way to strengthen your back, Mom?
Your core.
The deadlift.
Oh, I was gonna say the core.
All we do is deadlift.
Back
We deadlift 5 days a week, mother.
Well, usually when you have back problems, doctors will give you core exercises.
Yeah.
Or PTP will give you core exercises because your core isn't strong enough.
Yeah. That is true. There is something to that. Your core definitely has to be stronger than not doing anything. Your core really, besides back, like to your point, anything that is core is going to cause your back muscles to tighten forward so that obviously you're balanced both ways.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, and I was kind of a case of this, if you overcompensate with your core, you're going to have lower back problems. So.
Yeah, but I think most people, it's more common for people to work on their core. You don't usually find like older women who have back problems.
Yeah.
They're not going to work their backs. They're not going to work their posterior delts. They're going to focus on
and that's why you're doing it
stomach
wrong.
exercise. Well, they don't need a lot, just enough to help.
Grip strength, I always hate the grip strength one because it's like, what do you grip it? What are you trying to grab so hard?
Yeah.
In the real life world of like, the gym is used to strengthen you and be healthy, and these I understand, but I don't know why grip strength is so important to people. I don't really care about grip strength, but I have pretty good grip strength.
Well, as you get older, especially in our family, we have carpal tunnel. So I have to wear a brace at night when I sleep because I wake up with numb hands.
My mom wakes up.
I do. No, it's awful. Or I get pins and needles. Oh, it's terrible. And Dad gets so mad at me. He got mad at me the other night because I was trying to put the phone in my charger. And my hands, I had like limited feeling in them. And I couldn't line it up and I dropped the phone. He's like, why are you making so much noise? But anyhow, yeah.
I just picture you in the mornings.
No, it is. It's awful. But it's true. I mean, I can't. It's the weirdest thing. First thing I have to turn off the dial and humidifier. I'm really painting a picture here, right?
Yeah.
I got to turn off the dial, but I don't have the dexterity.
What is the brace like? Is it a brace that you can't physically move your hand in it, or?
It's a wrist brace, so it holds your wrist steady, but it has a arch inside of it, so it keeps your hands from. I think what I do is I grip them in my sleep, and that creates. Yeah, I'm not sure, but. For some reason, I don't need it in my right hand right now because I was wearing it for a while there, but now this one's not so bad. Every now and then it gets bad, but this one I have to wear it at night So when I wake up, I'll still might get pins and needles, but I'm supposed to have a nerve conduction test, which is so pleasant. But I'm
is
not
that what they
that.
kind of hit you with needles until?
No, I think they send little shocks through your nerve system, which is very annoying, I'm told. Like, your aunt's had it. And that's to identify if you have enough, I don't know, nerve connections or whatever. But I think my one hand, this left hand will lose feeling during the day. And that will just happen if I'm sitting a certain way. I get like pins and needles and stuff. So you'll see me doing this right now.
Oh, to get the blood flow back in?
To get the blood flow back in. But I think sometimes it's more of a pinch nerve. So when I saw the doctor about it, I saw a hand doctor, and he did say, when you do the nerve conduction test, that'll tell you if it's a pinched nerve or carpal tunnel or whatever. So, but you have to have surgery. There are exercises, to your point. So back to what you were saying, there's things you could do to strengthen the grip, but also to stimulate the nerves with the hands and bending your hand backwards and forwards and twisting it and whatnot. But who has time?
Yeah, that's interesting because I would assume that your hand, I guess I don't really understand how carpal tunnel works in the sense of how you get it. I know it's genetic, but I would have thought that if you're using your hands often, which I feel like most people do, you're less susceptible to it. But I don't think that's actually true.
No, it's the opposite. So people that usually have data entry jobs or do a lot of typing, it may not be genetic, or I don't know if it has to be genetic, but they tend to get carpal tunnel at some point.
That's why they make those ergonomic keyboards. Have you ever seen those?
Yes.
They're shaped like a V almost.
Yes.
And you're supposed to go like this with them.
Supposed to help you with your so you place your hands. So similar to this, like my hand is like this when I sleep, so it doesn't pinch up and it doesn't go flat. But anyhow,
that and a sleep apnea mask.
God. No idea what you're in for when you get older. You and your brothers, you guys are screwed. The mouth guard, the humidifier, the hand thing. It's like between death and me.
It's like you're in a hospital, but not being in a hospital. But
we got the bed, the hospital bed too.
Oh yeah.
Raise the head so we don't snore.
That's for comfort.
yeah.
Luckily, we're not at sleep apnea masks yet, but
no, we're not. Probably should be at it, but no, we're not at that point yet.
Well, you were I was going upstairs with the cat, and the cat was like, "What the hell's that noise?" It was you snoring.
Was it me or Dad? Because we both snore.
That's a good point. Yeah, I couldn't tell, but the door was closed. But I was like, "Geez." Yeah. Shaking the house, shaking the wall.
My mother used to snore really bad, very loud too. I don't think she snores anymore. I think she's outgrown it because I don't hear her when I go, and I'm up late.
Well, it took 80 years to outgrow.
88 years. She finally doesn't snore. Yeah. But it does affect the quality of your sleep, so.
Well, so yeah, strengthen those. That's really all we were trying to say. For those of you that are like, man, what am I lacking at the gym? Posterior delts, rotator cuff, grip strength, obliques, and glutes. That's where we're lacking. Should I do another one? I have quite a few, so let's bang out another one. I thought this was kind of cool. This is a quick one.
Okay.
So today there was, today or yesterday, I shouldn't say today, but apparently there's a hotel in Germany that has a fish tank that's massive. It's like a giant. I saw that. You did?
Yeah.
So it broke and it just flooded the streets of Berlin with almost 1,500 fish in it.
Do they know what caused it?
I think just damage over time. Like it just eventually something leaked. There's just a creek in the a crack in the where the what's the word? I guess the foundation. The seaming. And just over time, a leak started and then just grew and grew until eventually the pressure just caused it to burst.
See, I heard it was Ethan Hunt took a piece of gum and threw it on the glass. Yeah. To get out of there.
I think our age demographic doesn't know. I don't think they get
that.
Yeah.
Look it up.
But a lot of damage is done. They had to evacuate the hotel. But yeah, 1,500 fish inside the aquarium died. I was like, damn, that's a lot of fish. And they're not small fish
dead
either.
Dead fish on the ground.
Yeah.
Well, that's pleasant.
Look like one of those.
Wolfgang is going to get upset when he sees walking to the house.
400 smaller fish, and the rest were all large, which is kind of wild to think about. But it's really cool to look at. It's not loading on my MacBook because this MacBook sucks. But basically, it's like a giant pillar upwards that goes through the whole hotel. Yeah. I was like, whoa.
It's kind of a neat idea.
And then it was gone. Now it's gone, which is a shame.
Well, I sent Dad a real estate video of a boat in Abu Dhabi. It's a house. And you walk in it, and the first floor is your main area, right? It's a $20 million boat, whatever. But the bedrooms are downstairs underwater. So your whole window is wherever your boat's at.
Well, I told you about my friend's kitchen, right? Well, kitchen.
No, you didn't tell me.
So her dad's kitchen in that old house was so you have the kitchen, and then the island was so imagine your island. Say this was the island, right? Underneath it, this whole thing is a fish tank, right? It's a fish tank. This side is flat, like under what you stand on. That's a fish tank too. And then the back wall is an entire aquarium, and that's where they would get their fish. So you would just pull one out from there. Yeah. So he would have fish.
But you'd have to load it.
Yeah. So that's what I was about to say.
Okay.
So like, I guess like once a month or something, some guy comes in, like he orders the live fish. It goes into the aquarium, which you just like basically ladder on the other side, throw the fish in. Yeah. They stay in there till it's time to eat.
You pull them out to cook them.
Yeah. Oh. I think there's a pulling system from the countertop, but I've never seen the whole. I've never seen a picture.
If the waitress swims by, you catch it with the
net. That's what determines what dinner is. Yeah. Looks like we're having tilapia tonight. But yeah, it was pretty cool. I've seen it.
They weren't eating the fish, but this is kind of a neat idea. I like the idea, but then I thought about if you're in the open sea, what the hell are you looking at? When in the middle of the night, I don't want to see some shark.
Oh, yeah, you see like a freaking octopus. Jeez. Yeah, no, that would scare the crap out of me. We were just talking the other day, a little off topic, but one of the things that frightens me the most is...
spiders.
Have you ever seen those cave divers?
Yeah.
Like real... Yeah. Where they're in these tight spaces that are like...
Yeah, you gotta watch that one. That's that 13 Lives, I think it was called.
Yeah.
You shouldn't watch it, but yeah, those are those kids that were stuck in the caves. And the divers had to go into these tight spaces.
I would do anything else but that. If you said burn alive, I'd take it over that any day. Any day.
Well, that's why they had to knock the kids out.
Yeah.
Right. They anesthetized them.
Thailand? Right?
That was in Thailand, in those caves, which are neighbors from Thailand. And he says, yeah, it happens. They just flood, and you're stuck in there. So they didn't know how they were going to get these kids out, who were actually probably much better with meditation and whatnot, because that's part of their culture. And the coach, if you ever watch the show, it's very good it's a real story.
Right. So let's take this back a step, because some people are probably like, what are you talking about?
It's a soccer team where they were playing together, and they were going to go to one of the players' birthday parties, but they wanted to go to the cave first. So their coach went with them. And that often kids would do that, and they would go into these caves, or people would do it. So they did, and out of the blue, a monsoon hit, which is the rain comes down, and it filled up. And they were so deep into these caves, they would come out, go home, go to the party. Yeah.
It flooded.
Right, the whole thing flooded, and it fills in the entrances. Yeah. So they just assumed it was pretty far. They had in kilometers, but they just assumed the kids were dead. But they sent in 2 divers. They were British. I think one was British, one might have been American. So they went thinking they were going to pull out the dead bodies of the boys. Yeah. They found them sitting on a shelf, all the boys, with their coach. Right. And the coach managed to keep them calm by doing meditation, which in that culture, they're big into that.
Yeah. I forget how long they were down there for, but I feel like it was a month.
It was a long time because it took them a long time to figure out. First of all, they had to fight to get them out because they were saying, we can't get them out. We don't know what to do.
Remember? They weren't swimmers.
The kids weren't swimmers, but also the space was so tight that they started to panic they worried that if we took the kids out, because they sent in some divers, they lost one, and it was a professional adult diver. It's not so much that he panicked, but like his air hose got stuck on something, and it opened, and he couldn't get out in time, and he died. So after that, they were like, we can't do this with these kids. It's a really good show, but they wound up, Elon Musk was going to offer those tanks to bring them out, right? Problem was the caves were too small for the tanks to fit through. Yeah.
Now we're talking like some of these caves, guys, were like this big, so you can't really get anything in there.
Yeah, or the passageway was very, very... And then they would have... So you'd have a narrow passageway, and then it would open up to a small area where you could stand or whatever.
Exactly.
But then you had to go through another little cabin. So, long story short, they figured out... the 2 divers said, we got to get these kids out. We got to find a way. And the one guy suggested a diver that they knew who was an anesthesiologist. I think he was the American, and he came from the West Coast. and he figured out what they want. And first he was like, I can't do that. I can't.
Right.
And the distance meant you'd have to knock them out along the way because it would wear off.
Right.
Otherwise it could kill them if you give them too much. And he goes, this is so risky. But that's what they did, and it wound up working. So they would mask the kids up, shoot them with it in the leg, and they would take, I think, 3 or 4 a day. And the kids were, happy to get out. But as soon as they got out, put them in an ambulance and took them away so that people couldn't, freak them out.
Yeah, freak them out, and also nutrition. They had no food.
They were living off of nothing, for several days.
And these are young kids.
Yeah, they were 10, 11, maybe younger. And they gave the coach a lot of credit because he was a young man, but he kept those kids calm. And think about it, they were in pitch black. So the first set of divers, they left them flashlights, I believe. And some food they brought to them, like dried food, after their next trip in. But it's a really good story. And we lived, right, that was recent that it happened, and you heard about it on the news. What they also didn't, or what I wasn't aware of, is there was another group of people working on the flooding. So up in the mountains, what was happening when they have the monsoon season, it all floods down into the caves from above. So he knew that the water was coming in, this young person, and he rallied all the local farmers because they have all these rice plantations and whatnot there. He rallied them all to start bagging areas to reroute the water so it wouldn't continue to fill in the cave and drown the kids.
Wow.
So that's the side of the story that people, the non-glamorous side, he's not a diver, but what he did was invaluable. And he got the people to agree to ruin their crops over the kids, because they had to route the water all into the rice paddies, and he said... It's
going to destroy those rice paddies.
Yeah, you're going to lose your crops for, I think, a year. And, the people need it. But he said it's the only way these boys are going to survive if we don't reroute that water. Now, that might be part of Hollywood, but, I think there's a lot to be said for that when you have that much water.
So, life lesson, don't go into caves.
No caves in Thailand. Don't go there.
Just in general. There's never a reason to go into a cave.
No. Tight space, especially monsoon season.
I don't even want to, normally I would show you a video. I can't even look at a video of people diving in caves. And I'm not even talking underwater. I'm talking about those people. There's a guy on TikTok who's famous for this. He'll go into caves where he's like, hey guys, this is where I am. Let me try turning around. And I'm like, how the hell are you going to turn around in here? You have this much to work with. Yeah. It's nuts. It scares the life out of me.
Yeah.
But I see, you might have to find one of your articles because you sent me the subscribe to Liberty Loft letter, so you forgot to send the actual thing.
Oh.
Which sucks. So, do you know which one this was?
Liberty Loft. I don't know which one Liberty Loft was.
Get it together, Mom. Yeah, you're real close to getting fired.
Oh, no, it was a zombie one.
Oh, it was?
Zombie virus.
Oh, we talked about this.
50,000-year-old zombie. Oh, you did?
No, we didn't talk about. I'm saying when we first started the podcast with you, remember we talked about the zombie deer? This is a zombie virus?
Yes. I don't remember the zombie deer.
You don't remember the zombie deer?
Maybe I do. Apparently, another downside to global warming is there are 50,000-plus-year-old viruses that are embedded in permafrost in Siberia.
Yes, I've heard of this.
Okay? Yeah. Right. So these viruses are frozen in the permafrost. They're now coming out with global warming. Don't get alarmed. Sometimes they make a big deal. But French National Center for Scientific Research found in Siberia permafrost, which, for those who don't know, permafrost is permanent frost. So it's so cold that there are layers that are frozen in time. Mm-hmm. But as it gets warmer, the top might thaw a little bit. But now with global warming,
there's not enough sun in those areas to get through all the way down. What ends up happening is it just keeps kind of freezing over.
Right.
So it's so cold that when it turns into a liquid, it just freezes again. That's why it's permafrost.
Permanent frost. Permafrost. Yep. Okay. So the French National Center, they found 13,000 viruses that are about 58,500 years old. Now they're suggesting to bring them to life in a safe lab. Let's all pause for a minute with all we've experienced the last few years.
What are we talking about here?
Reason being, they say that you can study them to make sure that they don't become prevalent, okay? Fortunately, there are current meds to help deal with a lot of these viruses that, 48,000 years ago, we didn't have those type of things. Right. Same thing with bacteria that might be coming out of the permafrost. We have antibiotics now. But interestingly enough, in 2016, there was an outbreak. A child died of anthrax in Siberia.
Wow, anthrax.
Yeah. It came out of a dead deer carcass that thawed, basically, and released it in the air, whatever, and the kid must have been around it. and he wound up being okay, but it can happen. So anthrax is a very serious, I guess it's considered is it bacterial? Anthrax might be bacterial?
I always thought anthrax came from, it was a chemical.
Yeah, I thought so too, but I don't think so. I think it's an actual microbe of some sort, either bacteria or virus.
So, anthrax is a serious infectious disease caused by gram-positive rod-shaped bacteria known as Bacillus anthraticus.
Okay.
Anthraticus, whatever. It occurs naturally in soil and commonly affects domestic and wild animals around the world. People can get sick with anthrax if they come in contact with animals infected and contaminated by it.
Oh, we had the anthrax scare back in 2011 or 2001 after the bombing of the World Trade Center. All of a sudden, we had anthrax being mailed all over. We thought it was terrorist. Turned out to be a domestic terrorist who was sending it from some.
No relation, right?
No, I forget why all of a sudden they were doing it. I don't remember the whole story because we had so much going on at the time that I just remember everyone was panicking because there's anthrax going through the mail system, but it seemed to be targeting certain people like politicians.
Oh.
But anyhow, at the time it was very serious, and I think it is very quickly deadly. You know, you touch it or whatever.
Well, on the science and health kick, let's talk about that big nuclear fusion breakthrough that we had. Now, let me start by saying neither of us are qualified to talk about this.
Not at all. Not at all.
But I can kind of give like the layman's term of what it means. So we had a big scientific breakthrough last week where basically they used, again, I'm so not the person to tell you about this, but essentially we were able to make something. I'm going to say something because I believe it's atoms, right? Technically what you're supposed to do is smush atoms together to make a nuclear fusion.
Yeah.
And basically use energy to make those go, and usually what happens is it halves the energy. This is the first time that we've been able to put in energy, and more energy than what we put in came out. And this is a pretty big deal. And the reason is, personally, I don't know exactly what what's the word I'm looking for? Like what the advancement of this is going to be. But from what I'm seeing and based on this article, it seems like because of that, when it comes to flying rockets and stuff, if it's driven by fusion, you can get more power out of rockets and flight will be a lot faster. So people are saying this is the early step to getting human life to Mars. Because it's a lot easier. It'll be faster to travel back and forth.
I thought it was more for energy, just to create another energy source.
Right. That's part of it, but they're saying from the space. This article specifically talks about the space aspect, and it's like, will we be able to get to the point where if you wanted to travel from Earth to Mars, you can do it in like a week rather than a month?
I think often like nuclear power is generated from reactions.
Yeah.
So you're not really creating the energy. The energy comes out of deconstructing something. So when you add something to these atom particles, when they split apart or whatever, or they become, what do you call it? When they become, when they lose electrons or gain electrons, can't think of the term now, but when you have that process, it gives off energy. And that's
like
what creates the nuclear energy that generates plants, right?
Well, we talked about this recently with a guy. We talked about the power of nuclear. Nuclear has a stigma to it, but it is by far the most powerful thing we have when it comes to energy. Like, it's the closest thing we will ever have to infinite energy, right? So the fact that we don't utilize it more is kind of a sin to society, in my opinion. But
there's an issue with it, too, because you have
radiation. Radiation's the real issue.
Right, and you have a byproduct that you have to do something with. And they've been sealing it in glass containers and shoving it in the deep ocean. And that's dangerous. You know, every now and then you have to get rid of the byproduct.
Well, the guy that I was talking to, he's very well knowledgeable in this stuff. He's been working on it for 50 years. He was saying how, and I completely agree. I kind of knew this, but we look at Chernobyl and we kind of stopped doing nuclear, like stopped progressing nuclear power.
Yes.
But he said if we kept up with it and we just made the advancements, like now we're at the advancement point where we can contain like you'll never have another Chernobyl. He said, like it's unless there's no one watching it. Like if government said, hey, or like now it's government regulated. So what I mean by that is there's people checking it all the time. I shouldn't say regulated, but there's people like, hey, is this up to code to make sure that something like Chernobyl ever happens, or never happens. But when we look at, like, remember the one up in Westchester, that nuclear power plant? Yeah. Like, that one wasn't up to code, but it wasn't a bad place. Right. Like, in the sense of it could do everything possible. But he said that because those things get shut down, we really can't make any nuclear advancements unless it's like an Area 51 out in Nevada. That's like the only place. He said if we put more resources into studying nuclear energy and advancing it, I mean, we probably wouldn't even have electric bills. That's how powerful it is. Like, it can easily run the whole country with just like
I mean, it's like anything else, but they roll it out. And believe it or not, I believe it was what caused the problem in Chernobyl. They were doing testing, but the facility was so outdated, and they didn't realize.
Imagine if the experiments you were doing were so out of control, like testing-wise, that the building and structures themselves couldn't handle it, and that's why you had Chernobyl.
But you'll always have, unfortunately, human error.
Agreed.
And it could. And the problem with nuclear, like Chernobyl, they're still feeling the effects of that today. Yeah. They won't admit it. I mean, they tried to hide it. Russia tried to hide it. And then all of a sudden you had cows with two heads, and they were, 30 miles from that site.
Yeah.
I mean, parts of Europe were affected
and the radiation
by Chernobyl.
in them were insane.
Right. So to say, well, let's try it, and if there's a problem, this isn't like an oil leak up in Alaska somewhere in the ocean where eventually it gets cleaned up.
But if it means infinite power, potentially, don't you take the risk of trying to improve it?
You have to do it on a smaller scale, I think. It has to be tested, retested. You have things in place, and you still have to keep working it. But unfortunately, governments are doing it at their own pace and under their own rules and regs.
Right.
And that's how you wind up with something like, for instance, a virus out of a lab in China. Because people are doing it, they're not being watched, they're not doing it in the proper conditions. There's also people who do it that do it for nefarious reasons. And
you are working with something that could be a nuclear bomb.
Right, and when it has impacts around the world.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, do I really want Iran working on a nuclear power plant? And there's very intelligent scientists there, but, what happens if they have a problem? That impacts the whole Middle East and all the people living there. That's not fair to the other countries. So I think it's something that should be done. I think scientists need to work together on it to assure that it is safe, that you have procedures in place. But it requires good faith effort on the part of scientists to say, let's share information. But nobody wants to share nuclear information because that's a weapon.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Right.
You'd have to have, like, the top 20 scientists in the world on some secluded island where that's where they do all their work. Like,
no government's going to allow that. They're not going to let their top minds go and do work and not pick their brains. What do the Americans say? What do the Russians say? What are they working on? What are their ideas? So
it's such a shame.
Get that far.
Because nuclear, again, imagine if we... I mean, it's probably going to be the only way we get to Mars and anything. Like, it's probably to be able to regularly go from Earth to Mars or Earth to whatever. I mean, you need some kind of nuclear reactor power, like some kind of nuclear power to get there in a couple days rather than a month trip.
Well, based on this article, obviously they're working on it. Obviously things are being done, and probably more than we realize because this is not coming out.
A little different though, because this is nuclear fusion, which is nuclear is not the point of it. If that makes sense, like you're not trying to make nuclear power. You're using the nuclear energy to create power, whereas we're talking about nuclear power. Yeah. So it's a little different, but still, either way, this is still like a huge improvement in the sense of now we can have faster everything when it comes to energy. So,
well, I believe that we'll get there. I mean, we've had so many advancements already, and yes, we had big step back with nuclear power because of the fear when we had a Chernobyl and a Love Island and all these places because it wasn't being regulated. They were just dumping stuff in a pond. I mean, that's how you got Love Island or Love Canal, which was this whole development. People were dying of cancer or developing all these cancers. Come to find out, the local, nuclear place was dumping their waste product into the local water source. Well, this was back in, the 70s and 80s? Obviously, you can't do that, but nobody was paying attention, and nobody was regulating it. So these companies were just doing whatever they felt they wanted to do, and that was the cheapest. And people heard that and like, oh, nuclear is bad. You can't do it because nobody's watching.
There's definitely a stigma to it. And it's a stigma that makes sense. But I think that nowadays we're more advanced to take on the challenges that nuclear has. I think that's the best way of putting it.
Well, just remember recently, maybe we even said it here, or maybe I just said it, was it a month or two ago, and it's still the case? Our leaders were talking about, in case we have a nuclear war with Russia, right? And we're thinking of handing out iodine or stockpiling iodine pills. The federal government was doing that. I mean, that's kind of cavalier. Like, oh, by the way, Russia has a nuclear weapon and they may launch it because of the war in Ukraine. You shake your head a little bit. When I was younger, and definitely before me, that was a frightening thought. It's still a frightening thought, but now people take it in stride. Like, oh yeah, by the way, there could be a nuclear bomb, and that's not a good thing. And everybody says it's not a good thing.
I saw a whole thing on. You saw Putin was threatening Great Britain. Did you see that?
Yeah, because I think they're giving them missiles like we were doing too. And
they said that Russia apparently has a missile, a submarine missile that is able to cause a typhoon that would put it underwater. Like it attacks the plates. Puts the UK underwater.
Oh, okay.
Which would be... Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you can have a missile that does that, but I mean, that's... Now you're affecting the tectonic plates. That's when a lot of people need to get involved and say, okay, now it's time to stop. Because now you're affecting other people besides Ukraine.
Well, just threatening to say, oh, Russia might launch a nuclear weapon on one part of the world.
Right.
Okay, so you say, well, as long as it's not us. But it doesn't matter. These things have such a wide range.
Yeah, it affects everybody.
Time, it affects everybody, right? And to be so cavalier, like, better stockpile those iodine pills. Okay, I think we got bigger issues with the iodine pills.
Priorities?
Yeah.
All right, Notre Dame sarcophagus open, revealing knight with elongated skull.
Yeah, so back in 2019, there was a fire in Notre Dame. That's in Paris, France, right? The Cathedral Notre Dame. Destroyed it.
You know how they rebuilt that cathedral because there were no blueprints? Does anyone know? They used Assassin's Creed, the video game, had a 1-to-1 scale of it. So they used the game files to rebuild that place.
Interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah.
So in the center part, it's called the spire, which is literally where, like, the center of the church.
How long ago was that fire?
2019.
Okay. For some reason, I was like, is that 20? It can't be 2017.
No, 2019. It destroyed it, right? But the spire, obviously, it's stone at the bottom. Yeah. So the wooden part, the rafters, which is really heartbreaking. It was arson, and it's just heartbreaking. But they're in the process of rebuilding it.
Was it arson, or was it, I thought, if I remember correctly, and I could be wrong, I'll check it, but, what was I going to say? I believe what's the candle called in the church that they burn?
Oh, the Paschal candle?
Yeah, I believe it fell over, and no one knew exactly what knocked it.
Yeah,
so that was the question.
The story. I think it was arson, but okay. So it destroyed it. So in the center, the spire floor, which is kind of right in the center of the church, just before the altar area and the choir area, there's this burial area, and they knew it was there, but what they found interesting was that they found a couple bodies there in particular, and they looked like they were special bodies, one of which was the foundation stone was laid by Pope Alexander III in 1163 for the whole cathedral. So they found, they called it a member of the clergy, I forget the term that they used. But next to him was a knight, which is very unusual. The knight, they think the knight was somebody of importance, not because they were embalmed, not because it had a crown of flowers, not because it was buried with the religious people, but because it had an elongated skull.
Yeah, that is weird.
So apparently, and this started in Peru with the Aborigines, many, so this was 1100s, whatever. What they would do is they would strap the babies' heads. We just recently talked about that, wearing like...
Oh, yeah.
They would purposely bind the babies' heads. So newborn babies they have I forget what it's called, but they have an opening in their skull, which allows the brain to grow. Okay? And as the brain grows, the skull grows, but it slowly fuses. So it's like a reverse reaction. And at some point, the head closes up, I think by I'm guessing, but I think it's like a year. I can't think what it's called.
I know what you're talking about. I can't think of it either.
So when they're young, if you start strapping the brain, as that skull forms, it becomes elongated, right? And that was a sign of wealth, elite, to do that. So they started doing it in particular in this area where Notre Dame is. Back in the medieval times, they were doing this with the knights. The elongated skull meant he was most likely an elite individual. Started in Peru. It continued, especially in this area, which I just told you, and they're not quite sure who this particular knight is, but they found it very intriguing to have that person specifically put in there with a member of the clergy.
Yeah, I wonder if he was a bodyguard or very close to him of some sort, but yeah, I mean, that is weird to look at. I was going to say, I wonder if it's just that the skull cracked and then kind of slid backwards. You see what I'm saying? So if I was to cut this part and
No, I think because the brain itself was actually, the bone itself was actually elongated, which they have seen in people in Peru and other parts of the world when they do this. That's what happens to the skull. It starts to become very elongated, which must make them extremely attractive people.
Yeah, I wonder what gives them, I wonder if that caused some mental issues, though.
Could. Put pressure on the brain in some areas.
It's gotta, right? Especially, I mean, you are a knight, so it's not like he wasn't able to do stuff, but...
He could function.
That's very interesting.
I didn't realize that it's been done all over. I mean, I've heard about, like, I know the Asians, I think it's the Chinese or maybe the Japanese would bind babies' feet.
Yeah, that was common.
They would have the tiny, tiny little feet. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's like a weird thing of beauty over there.
I know, some things they do. I mean, we have our stuff, but back then, to put a baby through that makes you wonder.
I saw the opposite of this. Have you ever seen what they do with shrunken heads? How they make shrunken heads? You know the back in the day, in Native Americans, not here, but usually I think down in like South Africa, or South America, they would make shrunken heads. Yeah. And the way that they did it was basically they would put it in hot sand until it basically shrunk, and they would keep doing it until the head was like this big, and that's what they would do to captured soldiers.
Yeah, the enemies.
And then they would send it to it was like a what's the word? I guess a reward or an achievement award for having like 20 skulls around your neck.
Yeah, well, you see them like they would hang them up in the village and whatnot.
Yeah. So in entertainment news, we just had Avatar: The Way of the Water come out, and this title is Dead in the Water. So I thought this was kind of interesting because when you look back at the first Avatar, right? Remember, it was like a movie that cost $1 billion to make.
No, I don't think it was that much. It was a lot of money, but I don't think it was that much.
Avatar,
especially at that time. But yes, James Cameron. James Cameron does these big budget movies. He did Titanic. He did.
You're right.
I'm
sorry.
No,
I don't know where I got $1 billion from. But it was $237 million US. That movie came out back in 2009.
Yeah, which is a lot of money back then. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, for that time, remember the big thing about that was the advancements in technology to make that movie.
Yes.
Right? CGI, it was blown away. It would blow everyone away. But nowadays, it's not that impressive. So now it's just a story about blue people that no one really cares about as much. And I think that's why it's not doing too well right now. Now, I do think it's one of those movies that everyone's going to end up seeing anyway. The real question is who's going to movie theaters anymore? That's more of a question that should be asked. But I just thought it was kind of funny to see that. I knew it was going to not do as well as the first one. Like, that's obvious. Usually the second one doesn't do too well in comparison to the first. But, yeah. Apparently he had a 9-hour cut of this movie. And this is 3 hours down. Honestly, I'd pay for the 9-hour one over the 3-hour one. I feel like I gotta get all my... If I'm going to go somewhere, it better be good and pretty long.
You're not sitting for 9 hours.
Oh, no, I'm not. If it was at home.
9 hours.
Yeah, no, you're right. I don't mean a movie theater. I meant like at home. Like I could put it on while I'm doing other stuff. But my question is, how do you do a 9-hour movie? Like, what's in there? Is it just two guys at a table for like...
Well, I mean, when they film movies, they're not an hour or two. They cut it, slice it, they make it into something. So they do hours and hours of these movies and edit it out. But 9 hours, I mean, how long is it, the 3 hour?
It's 3 hours and 12 minutes
Which
now.
is,
That's pretty long.
But I could see, long movies are 3 hours. There's some that were out there, they would say, you got to cut it down. I'm thinking these great, there was a 3 hour movie. I don't think it was like The Passion, but it was some very long movie. And everyone screamed, you got to cut it down. But it was one of those movies where, you can't cut it down. It's just, you have to sit through the 3 hours. Why can't I think of what it was?
Probably a Quentin Tarantino movie.
Maybe, but that's, some movies, you're going to need 9 hours of footage to come up with 3 hours. To cut it down to 3 hours.
Right,
so
exactly.
that makes sense.
It's like when you're editing YouTube videos. It's going to be a lot longer than...
Right.
But it's not that I think the movie's bad. It's just it's not impressive anymore. Does that make sense? Like,
well,
2009,
I was told the opposite. The one critic I read said it's very impressive, the CGI and everything else, but the story is kind of like, okay.
Oh, see, I do just assume that from the perspective of when you see the 2009 one that was so ahead of its time, like we've never seen anything like it at that point. Now, I guarantee you, if I see this, I'm gonna go, oh well, now there's 100 movies that are about on par. It might not have the detail level of what this is.
Yeah.
But still, it's not. Some people would go for the cinematics of it, whereas now I just think it's average.
Yeah, right? Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And no one's doing 3D anymore.
Right.
When was the last time you saw a 3D movie?
Yeah, but we got to put the glasses on.
Yeah.
People don't like to do
I love seeing this in red and blue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put the funny glasses on. You take for granted people who have to wear glasses, like regular glasses. It messes them up. With the 3D stuff.
Now I'm seeing red, blue, and blurry. Come on. Yeah. And then also the other big entertainment news, which we talked about, probably the biggest sad moment in, honestly, Hollywood history. Henry Cavill gets fired, we think, from being Superman. Now, listen, who the hell else is going to be Superman? Who are you going to throw in there? Mark Wahlberg can't do it. Matt Damon's not going to do it. I just can't imagine anything. And props to, we were talking about this at dinner, but props to The Rock in the sense of, we didn't know this, but a long time ago, I forget who the next director is. I forget his name, that crazy guy. The one that had the pedophile charges.
James Gunn.
It is James Gunn? Okay.
From Superman, yeah.
Yeah. So he wants to revamp the entire series. I should say allegedly.
With little kids.
Yeah. He wanted to start... Yeah.
With younger kids. That's a sign.
Yeah. So he wants to reboot the DC franchise, and one of the things that The Rock wanted when he did Black Adam a couple months ago was that he wanted Henry Cavill to be Superman at the end of Black Adam to get ready, because I guess The Rock knew that a new Superman movie was coming. Mm-hmm. But James Gunn wanted to do almost like literally a full reboot of the DC universe. So he wants to start with Superman's origin story. Right. So it's him growing up, and that's why Henry Cavill's not coming back as Superman. But basically The Rock said, well, I'm only going to do Black Adam if Henry Cavill gets the next Superman movie. And James Gunn said, sure, whatever. You can do that. Promised him, and then he ended up breaking the promise with The Rock. So The Rock goes, okay, screw you. I'm not doing any more of your movies. And then you probably saw it on Twitter. Our viewers probably saw it on Twitter that The Rock unfollowed him, all that stuff, the social media drama.
Yep.
But props to The Rock for sticking to his guns on that one. That's kind of an FU to Hollywood, and you don't want to do that.
Yeah, he didn't deserve that.
Yes,
and they agreed to it.
Yeah. If it's not Henry Cavill, it's going to tank. And he didn't even get The Witcher back, which is bullshit.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So now he's doing Warhammer. They're going to do a Warhammer 40,000 film, which, honestly, that could be bigger than either of those two that he's done. Warhammer has a huge following.
Yeah, you're telling me that.
Yeah, it's massive. I don't even comprehend it. Jason sometimes gives me the rundown, and I'm like, dear God. So. Well,
he's got to be able to cross over, because I will say this, The Witcher is...
Be very careful with what you say.
I'm trying to put it the right way. Superman is universal. Anybody can go in. An elderly couple could go in. They know.
It's Superman.
And even if you don't know the story, it's the superhero. Gets the villain.
You put two and two together. Yeah.
Right.
It's got the same mechanics. The Witcher, to your point, a little bit of lore to it. You can't just jump in.
Right, or if you can, you don't. It's tough to relate to the characters because there's a background story with the whole gaming aspect. And not that you need to be a gamer, because I watch The Witcher and I've never played the game, but it's not as easy to, go into that world as you can a Superman who's in modern world. So you may not understand about kryptonite and all that stuff, but you can make sense.
There's a weakness. The superhero has a weakness. It's not uncommon.
Witcher was very kind of out there, and I don't know. I think you would have got more out of. I would have got more out of The Witcher if I knew the gaming side of it and the history of it. But then again, a lot of people don't want to be bothered.
Well, they're based on books too, so the book you'd have to read. I've never read the books. I just know what I know from the game, so I know some of the characters. But also, you got to look at that cast. Like Henry Cavill was the only thing really keeping that show together in the sense of everyone else is. I don't want to say no-name celebrities, but there's no. You have Henry Cavill and everyone else. There's nothing. There's no Henry Cavill and some other celebrity.
Yeah, but remember that's what Game of Thrones was. That was all British actors.
Yeah, but Witcher is not Game of Thrones. You know what I mean?
Not,
it's not the
but
same
that's
level.
what happens when you take a BBC or a production over in Europe.
Could you make the argument, though, if you don't mind me cutting you off, but there's no one famous who started and got in Game of Thrones, right? It's all numbers.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We don't know those actors.
The Witcher, though, Henry Cavill already stars in it.
Yeah, we
and
knew
everyone
he was
else kind of revolves around. Yeah.
Right, but you may not, and I may not know those British actors and actresses, but they know them over there.
Oh, so do they? Okay, then I take back what I said. I didn't.
Right, some of them are brand new. Some of them are new faces, just like Game of Thrones was predominantly new faces. Maybe I can't think of his name now. Peter, what's his name? The one who played the
dwarf, Peter Dinklage.
Yeah, Peter Dinklage. He had somewhat of a name. He was in some shows before Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
but he wasn't a big actor. A couple others might, kind of knew their faces, but predominantly they were all found, discovered for that show. But some of them were on shows in Europe or in BBC that people knew. We don't know them over here because they're not common. But Henry Cavill's universal because he did Superman.
Natalie, hold on, I got this. Who's the Natalie Dormer? Remember when she was famous for a while because of Game of Thrones? She just had like a huge explosion, but now you don't really hear of her. Now I hear more of Emilia Clarke. She's the most common. Oh, and Jason Momoa, of course.
Yeah, well, Jason Momoa that's what made him Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones.
And Natalie Dormer, I knew of her from The Tudors because I watch BBC.
Oh, that was before?
Yes, I watch BBC shows. I watch British shows from time to time on TV. Or I had been long before they became popular now, before you had streaming and everything like you have nowadays. So I kind of knew Natalie Dormer's face. And I actually knew Henry Cavill because he was in The Tudors. He played...
did he?
Yes, he played the king's friend. So I knew his face already long before Superman.
I can't imagine anyone else being... He is Superman. Like, he can you imagine... Who has the look of Superman besides Henry Cavill?
Well, if they're going younger, they're going to get a young person.
George Clooney didn't even.
No, but I thought they were going younger, right? Aren't they doing?
Yeah, I don't know who it's going to be. Yeah. I would assume, who they should make, like teen Superman. You can probably pass the guy that played the Elvis movie. That one that just came out.
Oh yeah, I know what you mean. I know the face, but I don't know the actor's name.
Butler, Austin Butler.
But also too, some of these people are getting older.
Yeah.
Iron Man can't be 58 years old.
You shut up.
I know. Well,
you shut up. Don't you dare say that about Robert Downey Jr.
I know, but
he lives forever.
At some point, you have to. You do have to get right, and you have to get a younger person. Now, I don't think Henry Cavill. He probably had one or two Supermans left in him, but he's what 39.
It could be
41, something like that. So I mean, how old do you want Superman to be? And if you're going to reset the clock, you got to reset it with.
But how can you look at that guy and go, "Man, that's not Superman anymore"?
Well, I mean, yeah,
I can't imagine it.
He is the actual, But we used to say that. I'm dating myself now with Christopher Reeve. Oh, how could anybody else be Superman but Christopher Reeve? And many have.
Christopher Reeve's ass. Get out of here. He's 39. You're right. 6'1". Oh, he's not even that tall. I thought I would have pinned him as 6'4" or something. But I guess that's what happens when you're Superman. People think you're taller than you actually are.
Yeah, well, he is Superman.
Yeah, again, I can't imagine. To your point, you do have to pass the baton at some point. But the question is, are we just going to reboot these characters every time? Like, reboot the whole storyline every time? Like, what happens when all the Avengers are too old to be the Avengers? Do you restart from scratch?
Yeah, that's probably what they do. Yeah. Well, they'll wind up doing, my guess is you'll have this younger person. They'll do it, it'll bomb. And then we're going to have a big, guess who's back? They're going to tease that Henry Cavill's back as Superman.
Right. I think James Gunn is going to end up... Henry Cavill's full name is Henry William Danglish Cavill. Don't act like you knew that.
I did, actually.
Danglish?
I did. It was a weird name. It's like a family name thing.
Right. I think what James Gunn expects is because he's rebooting the series, he knows that the next Superman is just for storyline. He's probably okay with it bombing. Like, he's probably going to put the least amount of money possible into it just to reset the story and then continue on with either Henry or someone else.
Well, maybe, but I don't know that they want to reset if they want to reset the story, it's not for the greater good of the creativity. It's because of money. Because the studio is looking at it like Henry Cavill's getting older. So we need to go backwards with the clock and get younger people. Look at Paxton, the one who did Batman, right? Patterson, thank you. They're all young. All the characters in it were younger. It certainly wasn't George Clooney who was Batman, and it wasn't Ben Affleck, who's a lot older, right? So they go backwards because they can redo it and get more mileage out of younger actors as they age in the role. You're coming to an end with Iron Man, right? With who's some of the older ones? Even Chris, what's his name, who plays Captain America?
Chris Hemsworth?
No, Captain America, not Thor.
Evan.
Chris Evans.
Chris Evans. There you go.
So I mean, he's getting older too. He can't keep playing it, so they have to reset it, which was ingenious in my opinion with the Avengers, because they wound up doing.
Just so you know, I had to look it up. Robert Pattinson is 36, so he's not that young.
He's getting there. Yeah. But it was ingenious what they did with the Avengers, right? They went back in time in the 1960s. So they had all those main characters that they had the whole lifeline of, and they introduced some younger characters, but they got a whole, 5, 6, 7 movies out of going back to the 1960s when Professor Xavier was a young guy and still walking. Genius. And they had great actors doing it and made their careers. Michael Fassbender, all these younger actors now took the role over, and now they can do both.
Yeah, I just don't know what you would do. Like, how do I put this? So I think the opposite, I take it, is kind of to your first point, was I think that James Gunn is going to, I think he knows that a reboot is going to fail anyway. Like, I don't think he's doing it for the money. I think he's doing it because it's easier to reset a story rather than explain it in future movies. So I would rather make one that makes a creative story, let it tank, and then the rest are just bangers.
I think nobody's going to invest. No production company is going to invest in something unless it's a moneymaker. Nobody cares about the creative side. They want to make money.
Yeah, but the problem with the DC universe, and I'm not, again, I'm not a movie buff, but I know the comics. The problem with the DC universe is that there's so much that they could do to be better than the Marvel universe, because I truly think that the DC universe is way more interesting for people more so my age. Mm-hmm. Marvel's for kids. That's really, in reality, that's what it is. DC is a lot darker. There's a lot more death.
Yeah.
So that's more of the road that, like, they have so much to work with, but they never worked with it. Mm-hmm. Like, the Justice League movie was shit. Yeah. Right? And I didn't even see it. That's just what I'm told. I'm pretty sure it has like a 10 on Rotten Tomatoes. That's probably a lie. Exaggeration. Let's see. Justice League. And then they had that Teen Titans movie that was awful. Remember they had...
But I think that's the issue. So DC only appeals to an older audience. If you're trying to get money from the kids, and the kids are the ones that go to the movies.
Yeah, that is true.
But I don't even know if they make the money from the movies anymore, to be honest. I think it's all about the streaming. It's all about the international.
Yeah, I think in a couple years you're going to see the whole movie industry really have a revolution. Revolution? Yeah, revolution. It's going to change drastically. Evolution, jeez. It's
going to evolve, or it's going to go away, you think. But I don't know, maybe. I don't know if people are,
Yeah, there's a 39 on Rotten Tomatoes.
Going out to movies as much as they used to be.
Yeah, well, no one wants to sit in a nasty movie theater anymore, especially when most things come out same day anyway. Like,
the other thing I would say is, like, Dad and I went to see Maverick at the movies. And we don't go to the movie. We don't like go to the movie theater at all.
Right.
That kind of movie you have to see on a big screen. And I think it was worth it. You can't, unless you have a house with a home theater, which we don't yet, it's not really worth it. Because you don't get the surround sound, you don't get all that stuff.
My mom means we don't have it in this house. If you go to that house over there, where it's connected, there's 2 movie theaters in that one? Yeah.
2 movie theaters with the popcorn maker.
Yeah. Just want to make sure everyone knew.
And we charge you $20 for a Snickers bar, just to make you feel like at the movie.
Just make sure you're getting screwed at the movie.
An enormous drink for $50. It's all ice. So that's the other thing I would say. Some movies you still DC you probably would want, or Marvel here you probably would still want to see on a big theater, big screen.
Yeah, I'm not a projector though, guy. Like there's really no such thing as a big screen. Like when you think about it, most movies are just projector screens.
Well, yeah, that's how it always was.
Yeah, but nowadays.
But you get the surround sound. Now you get the comfy seats. And
yeah,
just kind of a nice
wonder
experience.
if you're watching that many movies, which I assume that if someone who's really into movies would probably have that. Like if you have a movie theater at home, you probably have all that surround sound stuff anyway.
Yeah, no, that's true. But not everybody has that. That's my point.
Right. But what I'm saying is you could do like a makeshift one. You don't need a whole movie theater. You just need some speakers in the room and you're good.
Right. Or some people will say, well, I'll spend the $20 and go see the movie. I don't have to put in a whole system in my house.
Yeah.
Especially young kids. They're looking for things to do to get out of the house. And that's the target audience.
Yeah.
DC kind of is a niche that's older people. And think about it. It's not old enough where somebody like I would necessarily want to go see a DC movie. Now you're limiting your audience to just a certain group. So you're not capturing the kids with the Marvel heroes.
That's true.
And you're only getting a certain portion of the older ones. It's always got to be business. You got to look at it from dollars and cents. Because that's how they do it.
To your point, you do have to balance things out. But like DC, as I said, it's all probably 18 and up sort of stuff. Yeah. Marvel doesn't have that.
Which is okay. You can have mature movies. It's just it's not only 18 and up. The older audience isn't going to care. So it's not like you're going to capture, the 70-year-olds who want to go out to the movie on a Friday night. They may not want to see
guy with his cane and his Batman costume. Yeah.
Well, think about your grandparents. They used to go out all the time to go see movies.
Oh, yeah.
So they were in their 70s and 80s, or 70s. So they weren't going to go see a DC. Well, they might see a DC movie, but it would have to be really, really appealing. And it sounds like the storylines cater just a certain group of people who know that storyline. It's like The Witcher all over again. It caters to certain types of people. It's not a universal product.
I just hope that Henry Cavill finds like a new role. I think Warhammer's cool, but that's another niche group. Like I don't know Warhammer, but I will say Henry Cavill's famous enough that he's an A-list. So
well, it's good for his career too to break out and start doing other types of roles.
Yeah, I can't think of anything that he wouldn't fit into except for like a comedy. Like he could probably do a romantic one if he wanted to. He can probably do action. Like he could probably do it.
He played a bad guy in Mission Impossible, right?
Classic with the reloaded his arms. You've seen that. Classic.
I don't know that I've seen all of it, to be honest. And he's done, The Tudors.
Was there a detective? Oh, yeah, that is a drama, right?
That's a drama. It was like a soap opera type. And it was a series.
Yeah.
So he's been but that's an early career. And now a lot of actors don't want to get pigeonholed into a particular one. Yeah. But Superman was so lucrative and something that became his role that I think people would have been mad if he said, I'm not going to do it. So he kind of had to commit to it. Anyhow.
I'm going to take a 180 just because we're pretty much done with all the entertainment news. So did you see Twitter reinstates the accounts of the suspended journalists? Did you see this?
Reinstates them, yes.
Them. So do you know why or like what happened? So
you mean the recent journalist that he took down?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. He doxed him and his kids, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I had a problem with this one because everyone on Twitter, I love the left on Twitter because they don't read anything. They just give their opinions. Yeah. So everyone's like, how dare you see freedom of speech and you're banning all these people who are journalists, who are left-leaning journalists. The reason these people got banned, guys, is because they were doxing him, which means, hey, this is his address. This is his kids' lives. This is where they go to school. You can't legally do that. A streamer just got in trouble for that as well. Nadia just got in trouble for doxing someone. You legally can't dox someone. That's illegal. So when you say, oh, he's taking away freedom of speech because it doesn't align with his, that's not true. These people actually did something illegal. I'll give props to Elon, though, for unbanning these suspended journalists. But also, again, he's given the power to the people. He did a poll about unbanning, and people got mad because he had to take down the poll. And they're like, oh, you didn't get the answer he wanted. So, I mean, there's going to be shitheads no matter what. Mm-hmm. But I don't know what the actual situation was as to why, but he redid the poll, got the same percentage, and he said, okay, well, reinstate them. I am curious as to why he did take it down.
What I find so frustrating is, and many people in the audience might, outside of your group of listeners, these same people were doxing individuals who disagreed with them for the last couple years. Conservatives were being doxed left and right. And they were complaining about it, saying, this is dangerous. You can't do it. Then they're on there calling for, get out there and go stalk the Supreme Court justice. And that was perfectly fine for them to do it. That's all right. That's legal. That's this. That's that. They knew full well it wasn't, you're not allowed to do that. They did it. They got away with it. And now for what? One day, the table was turned and all of the left.
And now they complain.
Right.
Yeah.
But you know what? Most of the people didn't care. I mean, I didn't take the poll that what's his name put out, that Musk put out. But here's the reality. The majority of the people, good. Stay off of it. They added nothing to the discussion anyhow, other than their biased opinion. Now, I don't believe in censoring anybody at all for just about anything, because this is how we get into this mess where one group decides, oh, you could dox people, and another group says you can't. But see how you like it. These people had it for one day. Imagine, as Elon said, imagine it's your kid.
Yeah. I mean, you're doing something illegal. You're doxing a family.
Yeah.
But they make the argument that you're a public person. It's like, what?
Not your kids.
You know how stupid you have to be to make that argument?
Not your kids.
I always hate when you see like paparazzis go up to celebrities and get all up in their face like, oh, you have to give me a picture because you're a public person. It's like, hey, they're still a human being.
Yeah.
Even if they're famous. It's like, you can't just force them to do stuff because they're a public figure.
Yes.
Like that I always hate. I hate hearing that stuff.
But the other side of it, it's just I'm getting very annoyed with the same group of people. I'm sure many of them were doxxed who you can't bring all these people back on Twitter and they decide to leave. We talked about this last podcast. And once again, we just shake our heads, the majority of the people in this country, because this is what we go through every time. Now you're starting to see it, right? Now you've lived long enough at 27. You're seeing the ridiculousness of it. They come down like a ton of bricks on individuals, and then when it's reversed on them in a small way, they can't take it. Yeah. And they freak out. And this is not right. This is another example. It keeps happening. We had it before just when Elon was letting all these people back onto Twitter, okay? They never should have been taken off. It doesn't matter what they say. If one group's allowed to say whatever they want to, another group should be allowed to say whatever they want to. And he's come in and say, free speech. I'm not even sure I would throw it out to people, to be honest, and do a poll. Just make it free speech. And it's interesting, I'm seeing more and more people coming back on, but they've had to ask to be put on. They've been requesting, could you please, Naomi Wolf, could you please put me back on? Some other famous people, Mike Lindell. Could you please, I don't think he asked, but he should have been. So he's putting people on. I guess he has to vet them somehow to make sure.
There's got to be something. There's got to be people that do that.
But at some point, he's got to see this is pure censorship and just put them on. You don't have to vet them. They just were taken off because of.
Well, it depends on what you're posting. Of course, you have to see what it is. But yeah. So let me ask you this one. We're going to take same concept, but I'm going to tell you what this streamer did. So I didn't see the full clip. I've only seen the censored clip. So this girl got a donation from someone, like donated $5, and he was just like donated $5 to basically talk shit, like just to say something mean to her. And she said his full name. I don't know if she gave his address or anything. I don't think PayPal does that when you get a donation. But she said his full name, and that was considered a dox. I didn't think that would be a dox because you're just saying the full name. I have to see the. Let me see if I can. Naughty. Because I want to see the actual video.
Well, I don't know, doxing, I thought that included an address so you could locate the person in real time. That's the danger.
I want to see the actual clip. I don't... Listen, buddy, no offense. Don't want your podcast. I want to see it. So
I just want to say, Daddy Slayer, I know you used your name as Daddy Slayer, and you said, enjoy using cheats, but what you don't know is that when you send me money on PayPal, it actually gives me your full name, so... Thank you for the dollar.
Yeah, it doesn't look like she gave an address. It's just the full name. So that's why I don't understand why that's doxing. Because it's still your public name. It's not like you're giving... To say someone's name...
Well, I don't understand not the law, but the protocol. So if you don't use your real name on a platform, most people refer to you by your platform name and not your actual name unless he posted his name somewhere. And she's saying because it was on PayPal, it's public information. That might be true. Well,
that is an interesting one. To me, dox is if you give away their address. Give me someone's real name.
I mean, because it's not a threat for you to know my name.
Yeah.
It's a threat for you to know where I am. A physical threat. Because that's the concern.
People can find you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you give out somebody's address, now, if it's an unlisted address, right? Now they can find you. So, that's Musk's concern. These are my kids. They go to school. This is where we live. Whatever. They did it in real time where they were at.
Right. So that's why I don't understand. I don't think... I'm not sure on the rule of that in this case. I'm talking about Nadia's case.
Yeah.
But is that a dox if you give someone their full name? I know you're not using the full name and you're trying to keep it ambiguous, but if it's a full name, it's not like they know where you are or who you are. There's probably so many people with that
Especially
name.
if you're unlisted, if you have an unlisted address.
Yeah.
But like I said, I don't know the protocol because I'm not on social media, but if the protocol is, if I never use my real name for anything, and I'm always referred to as, Emmy or something like that, then somebody should not be allowed to say, or shouldn't say, my full name. They can refer to me as Emmy because I do everything as Emmy or whatever nickname.
Right.
That's the only thing I would say.
I agree, but I'm just wondering if that's... I know it's... If you want to keep your name ambiguous, that's fine. But if you're putting yourself out there in a donation in the sense that... it's not doxing to say a full name unless there's an address because there's nothing that can come...
Right. Well, unless you have... As long as you have an... I don't know the rule either,
I'm struggling to put into words
if I get a name, I can look somebody's address up. That's not a problem.
Yeah.
Unless they're unlisted. Their address is not listed anywhere. But if the ruling on social media in general is if a person ever uses their real name, if they write an article, they use a made-up name, an anonymous name or whatever, and post it out there. If they never use their real name, you should not be able to expose them. However, once they use their real name, it becomes public.
Right. But here's what I'm saying. I'm willing to bet that their real name is somewhere on the internet because you have to sign up for the account anyway. Right? You can't use a fake name.
That might not be posted out there. That might just be known by the company, the social media platform.
Yeah, I'm going to assume it's a Twitch thing and a PayPal thing because I don't believe, like anywhere else, I don't believe it's doxing if you give a full name. It's doxing if you say, hey, this guy lives here or this person lives here. But a full name to me is somewhere on the internet anyway. Because when you sign up for something, like just email and stuff, if I give... Your email's out there anyway.
Right.
So if I really want to, I can find your email just...
Well, I think that was her point. Your email came up with PayPal. Or your actual name came up with PayPal.
But you can't,
Therefore, I can use that information.
If you have a public account like that, because I believe... Oh, well, it's tough. I don't know. I truthfully don't know in this case.
I don't know how legally they look at it for doxing.
She got unbanned in like a day, so...
Yeah, I mean, if knowing my name and address is a threat, that would be because they could take my full name and they could find my address.
Right.
So that's what... Knowing my name doesn't create physical harm for me.
That's what I would say.
But knowing where I am, that creates physical harm.
I guess the doxing is getting rid of that person's ambiguity, and that's the dox. Because they were trying... But I don't know how...
I guess so.
How long are you going to keep that up for anyway? Addresses, yeah, but like...
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I think it wasn't even a long ban, but I was just curious what your thoughts were on that. Because I don't know if I would consider that doxing.
Well, I know old school, and this has always been the case, and I think it should still be the case today. A lot of celebrities would never mention their children. Yep. They wouldn't talk about them. They wouldn't do anything about them. Because once you do it, they become fair game. Once you make them public people, Anybody can talk to them, go after them, get pictures of them, whatever, right? As long as celebrities keep them under wraps, meaning if you're at an airport with your child, that's you living your life. You're not promoting a movie or anything, and somebody has a camera. Usually they'll blur the child's face out.
Right. Legally, you have to.
I think legally you have to. However, if you have your children out there and you talk about them and pictures of them, they become public figures.
I hate that rule because that's a Hollywood rule, but legally the rule is you have to have permission to film or take pictures.
Yes.
So when you see here's the problem with things like TikTok and Instagram that people don't talk about is legally you're not allowed, that's considered...
No, but you can film celebrities coming off of airplanes.
Because they're considered public figures.
Right, so once you put the children out there, they become public figures, right?
But when you see people on TikTok who are just at the gym or something, and there's other people's faces in there,
yeah,
those people actually have a legitimate lawsuit, if they wanted to.
And they
put
their faces out there,
So for some reason, TikTok... Because of how easy it is to get videos out now, it's almost like people forget about that law. You're technically supposed to legally blur everyone's faces.
Yes.
There's no... If I saw a video that I was in, just randomly, and some kid doing a video that has nothing to do with me, I legally have a winning lawsuit against that person.
Yes.
So the fact that, if we go on TikTok right now, you'll see that a lot of faces are unblurred.
Yeah.
You better hope to God people don't find that out because you have a legitimate lawsuit on your hands.
But, okay, so, and this is the cornerstone of a lot of our problems, of things we talk about in this podcast. There's a lot of laws out there that everybody people don't give a damn about anymore. And that's why people keep doing it, and the world's getting sloppy, and idiots get away with doing things over and over again. Similar to this. Why weren't any of these people, these journalists, why weren't there lawsuits against them for doxing people when they did it to conservatives?
Because that's an actual illegal thing that they did.
Right.
You should be in a lot of trouble for that. I don't know if it's jail time. I actually don't know what the law is.
Because no court's going to take it. Nobody's going to file it. Nobody's going. So same thing with all these individuals on TikTok, Twitter, whatever.
Yeah, it's all kids too. It's
what
kids
do you want? 500,000 lawsuits? It's not going to happen, and they all know it. They knew they played the numbers game. So don't bother blowing the faces. Just put it out there. They'll take their chances that people are going to bother to sue, right?
Yeah.
But that's becoming pervasive in this country and the world, where people are just doing whatever they want to, and only certain individuals are paying a price for it. And this is becoming a problem, especially in the world of social media, because it's such a huge amount of information out there.
It's a law that has become normalized almost. Again, people can sue.
It's ignored.
Basically exactly.
Ignored. Yeah.
When you see, I'm trying to think, I'm trying to think of a famous TikTok example, but I guess I saw a picture the other day, or a video of Liver King the other day, who's in a public vicinity. There's some kind of thing going on. Mm-hmm. He's got tons of people's faces in there. Legally, they can turn around and sue him.
Absolutely.
Legally, completely.
Absolutely.
So, but again, that means that's the same for everyone on TikTok, not just Liver King. So that's why you got to be really careful when you post public figures out there. If you have a TikTok that goes viral and some kid's I can sue, he's got all the right to sue, and he's got a winning case. His face is in that TikTok.
Yeah, sure.
He saves that. Your life is over if you take that case.
Well, yeah,
if someone sues you for that.
Again, what court's gonna want to be bothered? You could bring it up.
Depends on how much money you're suing for, right?
Well,
depends on how much you want to get out of it. Last one. Parent sues Fortnite video game maker for addicting children. Serious
yes,
issues?
This is up in Quebec.
Oh, of course, those Canadians.
Parents claim that Epic Games developed the game to be addictive.
Oh, this ought to be good.
There's about 250 million registered users globally for this game, okay?
I would think more.
They claim the game is rigged, so you only win once in a while. Because if a kid won all the time, they wouldn't find it very interesting. They get bored, they move on. Okay, mastered the game. So they feel that it's manipulated so that, and they had some expert come in and do it, okay?
My son's not winning.
So about 200 people have come forward to join this lawsuit. 200 parents, I assume. What are their addictions? They don't eat. They don't drink. They will not go out and play basketball after school. I can't read that word. So basically, and they don't shower. Okay.
So wait, what's the correlation between the game's too hard or it's rigged and the addiction?
Well, some expert came in, for what it's worth. I don't know who the guy is, but his attitude was, sorry, I have to find it, but his comment was when he looked at the games. Give me 1 second. Let me just pull it up.
I'm about to shatter this lawsuit in 1 second.
Oh, I'm totally against it because...
well, these are parents that don't...
The pleasure center of our brain, and this is coming from Mr. Karen, is his name, of our brain is activated when we win, and the reward from the increased dopamine makes us want to do more. But if we win so often that it becomes a sure thing, then our brain can become bored. You can't eat key lime pie 4 times a day. For this reason, the games are designed so that you win only once in a while. By the way, this is the same argument about porn for adults and for kids too. Too much of it affects you mentally.
I think they just recently shattered that.
I don't know that that's true, but anyhow, for this reason, the games are designed so that you win only once in a while. Part of the joy of playing is the anticipation of winning. Each loss is just a goad to try for another win, and our brain chases the rush of dopamine we receive from the next virtual win. Okay. Let me tell you why I feel as a parent this is crap. Who's paying to run the games? Who pays the electric bill? Whose TV or computer or whose house is it being done in?
It's obviously it's...
Be an adult and shut the game off.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell your kid go out and play, and then you can go in and play your game.
It's bad parenting.
Right.
It's complete bad parenting.
Right.
The argument... That's actually an interesting argument now that I think about it. So they're talking about Fortnite. I'm going to assume it's the multiplayer version and how it's rigged to only win every now and then. If it was a single-player game, maybe I could see that, but we have something called skill-based matchmaking, right? We've talked about this. We're basically, based on how you do, that determines what the next game, the people you're going to play against. Yeah. So if you win one, your skill-based matchmaking is going to go up. You're going to play kids that are better, and your job is to, get better. Like you're not going to play basketball with the same kids you've been beating. They're going to eventually move you up to AAU. Right. You're going to get your ass handed to you, and then you got to work better. So this seems like parents or that lawyer is just out of touch.
I don't think that's a lawyer.
Whoever said that's
that might be their expert.
They don't understand. There is something to the skill-based matchmaking that even we complain about as gamers, but to say that it's manipulative, I would not say that because it's not the game saying we're going to give you people that are harder. Well, that's tough. They are doing that, but it's because they expect you to get better, right? They want you to get better at the game in practice. So to say that it's targeting that, it's a long stretch. You're really reaching for that one. So I don't think they really have a case there. But the argument of like the dopamine hit and it's nice to win, there is something to it. I agree. If I'm winning all the time, it's not as fun. But the thing is, you're not going to win every time. Like, you're going to make mistakes. So I think that argument's kind of shattered. That first part.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, you're the first person to say it, right?
Everyone says this.
But I'm saying, you can't stop playing these games. You've said it, that you have to do them. You've made a point of saying you have to do game-oriented stuff.
As a content creator, yes. This kid's not a content creator. He's just playing games.
No, I know, but there's that drive to do it, right? Even if you didn't do content anymore. If, say, for some reason you were shut down and couldn't do it, you would still want to play the games.
Yeah, I'd want to play games, but I wouldn't play the same games that I'm playing now. Like Warzone, I hate Warzone right now, but I play it because I need
but we're talking in general. I mean, I'm not even going to say Fortnite because I think that's ridiculous. I don't know that Fortnite's
any different than
I don't even know if it's any different than any other game out there or anything else. When we were kids, it was TV. Kids were quote unquote addicted to TV, and your parents said shut the TV off, and kids would sit all day watching TV.
Right.
They come home from school, they watch it till they went to bed. They did no homework, they did nothing. They didn't go outside. Those were unusual in the sense that normally parents came in and said shut the TV off and go outside. You had to do it. That was just part of life. And you complained. Nowadays, mom's not home. She's working. Kids are playing games more than necessary. Is it addictive? Probably. More so than other things. But I still go back to, stop putting that on the games. At some point, you should have shut those games off. And I've heard, I don't know if we did in the podcast, but I would read stories about kids getting violent, nasty, screaming, kicking their parents, little kids, when they had to shut a game off. Okay?
Right.
That's a sign.
But that's a sign of bad parenting, not a sign of the game.
Well, it's a sign of allowing them to do something that was getting them addicted for too long. It's like saying, stop eating candy and put a bowl of candy out.
Well, I guess what we're really talking about here is kind of with the last thing that we just talked about. You can't be giving a kid that much of one thing, of anything, at a developmental period in their life, right?
Right.
And I think video games, to your point, that's where problems can develop if you're 6 years old playing video games.
Well, because you do it when kids are younger, so they can self-regulate as adults. They get older, yeah. Adults can't self-regulate anymore. Okay?
Well, that's maybe. Can't make the claim.
No, I think in general,
You think in general most adults can't regulate time stuff?
No, I think most adults have their own addictions, like to their cell phones, like to Facebook, like to all these other things similar to what kids have with games. But you have a whole generation now and you're the first adult generation of kids that had access to these games, right? Yeah. And like I used to say, when you kids go to school, right? Now you have access to them in school with the laptops, the cows, and everything else. So schools were naive thinking.
Hold on. Cows, I don't know if everyone knows what cows are.
Computers on wheels.
Computers on wheels. So like my mom means school laptops and stuff.
Yeah, because in your schools, that's all you had. Kids couldn't get their own. Or tablets that they would get in the high schools now, right? But point being that now it's constant because kids aren't doing work all the time. Not all kids. They play games. It may not be Fortnite, it could be something else.
It's the downside of technology.
It's the downside of technology. So when it comes home, saying to your kid, now you have to go outside and play basketball. Well, they've been playing games at school. They come home. They don't want to go out and play basketball because all the kids who play basketball, they're playing Fortnite too or some game.
Right.
So it's like, unless you stick them in organized sports and they're forced to go, and a lot of them don't want to go. They'd rather sit and play the game. They learn to shut the game off when they're 5, 6, 7, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. You can't put that on.
So really, it's just bad parenting. That's really what this comes down to.
It's not
because you can't expect a kid to regulate.
Right.
So it's got to be on the parents to regulate it.
Right, and the parents are saying, yeah, but this is addictive. Yeah, but so is candy. So is soda. So is a lot of stuff. For me, it was TV when we were kids. And parents had to say, shut it off. Okay? And if it's that damaging, if you really feel your kid get the shakes because they're not playing Fortnite, I mean, they're physically affected by it, that's a bigger problem than Fortnite. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, on the parents' level, in the sense of you screwed up your kid.
Right, or you should nip it in the bud if you start seeing that kind of resistance where they don't want to do anything else.
These are parents who don't want to admit their mistakes, so we're going to sue and get money out of it.
Well, but hence the need when you guys were younger. You don't play video games during the week. You got to earn it and on the weekend. That's called self-regulating. It wasn't being a parent who wanted to be a pain in the ass, and it wasn't because we hated video games, which we did, but we knew once you kids get on it, you'll never want to turn it off. And if you did that all week long, look at what happened as you got older. And now it was out of our control because we couldn't control the computers all day. You saw kids doing it in school.
Well, no, I didn't see kids doing it in school. Well, in high school I did.
Yes,
but
that's
not
what I mean.
By
the time because you guys didn't have computers in grade school. Now every kid has computers in grade school. So what you saw in high school, that's what's going on now in the younger grades. They have it earlier.
Yeah. It was a lot harder, though, for us. Like, the difference, though, is when I was growing up, we didn't have the video games because, like, the computers were made for that. Like,
they weren't developed then.
Yeah, you can only have Macs and stuff. But once pirating came out and, like, people understood how to do pirating, that changes the game. Right. The difference is these kids have the access to do that. Right. We weren't given the access. We had to make the access to do that in school.
That's right, but also you guys didn't have universal apparatuses until you got to high school level. Mike's had it in grammar school into high school, right?
Right.
So he's had it, that's his younger brother. He's had it longer than you and Ken, right? And because of that, all the more reason why parents have to crack down on it when they're younger. They're treating this like another toy. Well, if there are games out there like a Fortnite, if you feel it's addicting compared to other games, again, you could put a bowl of fruit out. Kids aren't going to get addicted to a bowl of fruit. But if you put candy out and they eat it all the time and then turn around and say, it's the candy maker's fault because you made this candy and they really love it, then get rid of the candy. Odds are the kids aren't paying for these games themselves, or if they are, the electricity they use is mom and dad's. Shut it off.
Yeah, that's what Aunt Linda used to do, remember?
Yeah. Yeah, she had to do that. That's how you teach a kid to self-regulate, especially for parents, mothers in particular, because they used to be the ones who were home all the time. If they work, that's what you have to do, to have access to shut kids down and control what they're doing during the day when you're not at home.
Yeah, I mean, I see the point, but again, you're saying it from the perspective of, not perspective, but let me take it back to the article. They're saying that they're blaming the game for this addiction and the ability to get addicted.
Yeah.
Again, to your point, and I think we both agree, it is on the parents for not regulating it. But I also think that...
Or, let me say this. They better have a case where they can show Fortnite is more addictive than any other game out there. Because if they can't show that, they have no right to use that particular game as a case for addiction.
Right.
When it's not the game, it's just access to something to play, which happens to be Fortnite. They're trying to make it sound like Fortnite itself is designed to be addictive.
Right.
Okay, is Assassin's Creed designed that way? Is Candy Crush designed that way? Because then, how can you single out one game maker when it's an entire industry that does it?
That's what I mean. I think these people that are just out of touch and said, "Oh, let me give my kid this new Fortnite thing." Right. So they're blaming Fortnite. They probably think that it's the only video game in the world too. That's the kind of parents we're probably talking about here.
Well, isn't that what appeals to a lot of the young kids right now? Isn't their big thing Fortnite?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, Fortnite's pretty universal. Fortnite's its own category of games because it's so. What's the word?
Universal or
universal and unique is probably the right word, but.
It seems like something a lot of younger kids go for.
Yeah, it's easy to get. It's free. Right? It's a free-to-play game. So it's easy to get. Yeah.
Okay. That's
so because it's free, that's the easiest, I guess. Right. But so's Warzone, so's other things. But it's hard to get into. That's why it's almost impressive if a kid's good at Fortnite.
No, I don't know if it's necessarily impressive. I just think it's something if anything, they're not good at it, and they spend more and more time on it.
Yeah.
But that's all I'm saying. If you're going to make a case and you're singling out one particular game, you better be able to prove that it's the game that's causing the addiction and not the fact that they have access to something.
Can you also make the argument, though, or the counter-argument, that look at how many people have become successful and have made money because of that game? There's a kid that was... Right, I remember that there was like a 10 or 12-year-old who won $1 million in one of the Fortnite tournaments.
Yeah, I don't know that that's necessarily equating... Like, they're not... I don't know that they're saying that the game has no value for other people.
Right, they're just saying the addictive.
They're saying that it's addictive for certain people, and it's not fair to, especially if an adult is playing the game. That's one thing. They're saying it's kids.
It's really a regulatory issue at this point. It's not a matter of if it's addicting or not. It's just you failed to regulate it for your kid, and now your kid's screwed.
Well, it's another example of parents trying to blame somebody else or trying to get somebody else to do what they should do. I'm not saying it's easy. Trust me, we dealt with it with you kids, and there was no specific game. It's just that's the nature of the world, and it's even harder for parents because they got to regulate it at an even younger age, and they've got the world working against them because everything out there is social
technology.
Media.
You can also games. Yeah, but if the kid was outside playing basketball 24/7, would you still have the same argument?
And kids get addicted to basketball.
If they get addicted to playing basketball 24 hours a day, you're getting some activity, but you're still doing the same things. But they're saying kids won't shower, kids won't eat. That's not addiction. That's just you being a shitty parent because your kid's 8 years old.
Well, I remember reading articles about a lot of college kids. Once they're free and on their own, that's what happens. They start playing these games. They don't go to class. They don't eat. They don't shower. And parents go, remember we read about that. Parents go to show up and the kid is like a deadbeat.
I say this to any parent who's like, I talk to all the parents at my Y who are asking, oh, what kids going to college? What do you think? College?
Don't do it.
Not even that. But if your kid's going to go to college, like that's kind of the make or break period of not really navigating school. It's more so, can you navigate life? And you kind of learn right away who's going to be able to navigate life and who's not. And it's usually the kids that are...
It's an expensive lesson for parents.
Yeah, but kids need that wake-up call. And as you know, I needed that wake-up call too. But I think if you're not getting that wake-up call, some kids can navigate it, but if you don't get that wake-up call, you're kind of screwed.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and then you got a younger generation now. But by the way, you got a lot of people, adults now, and you could see it. They don't want to go to an office anymore. Why? They want the freedom to be home and work around their schedule. And I'm going to be extreme and say their social media schedule.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what, I don't see a lot of people watching quote unquote TV as much, but it's all social media based. And they got their laptops out and they don't want to work. And, they build their world around their social media life, not the other way around, right? Usually, and I say to your kids, your gaming is entertainment when you don't have work to do. It's not supposed to be your life and you fill your work in around your gaming. That's the balance.
Yeah.
Now, if somebody makes a career out of it, that's different.
Yeah.
But you do that
I
as
think
an
that there's a
adult.
lot of people who want to make a career out of it, and they make a couple dollars here or there, which is fine, but they end up chasing that dream, but they don't put the work in. So, like, say you post one picture a month and it gets 1,000 views. Okay, cool, but you can't survive doing it like that. Like, if you're not making it a daily thing and you're not treating it as a job.
They're thinking that I'm going to make a career out of
like,
this.
I'm going to be the next
all
star.
they're doing is they're an addiction. That's all it is. They're calling it a career, but it's an addiction.
Yeah.
They're not doing the work involved because it's a business. If you're going to
Yeah,
make a career
you
out
have to
of
understand it's a
you
business.
got to treat it as a business.
No-
And that requires a regulation and a discipline.
Yeah.
You can't just be gaming all day long nonstop. You have to stop.
And
at
I
the
think
age
too
to
many
do other
people don't.
things.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't understand that because again, the people who want to go down these career paths only see the end product and then go, "Oh, I want that." They don't see the work that goes into it. That's why when you see if you look at the biggest Twitch streamers, now I've always kind of had beef with. I've said this before, but I've always had somewhat of a beef with Twitch and these live streamers because all you do is turn on a camera and you could be famous, but that's not true. Like, that's really not what it is. When you look at the biggest guys, yeah, there's a certain randomness to it, but they still have the business aspect of it. You have people doing social media. You have people doing the editing, doing the clips, doing the thumbnails, doing all that stuff. That's a full-time job in itself.
Well, what I find interesting, and I learned this from Emily in Paris, I didn't realize how influencers work. And they're a marketing arm. And that's just could be young ladies taking pictures of you wearing shoes all over Paris, and they use that as marketing material. Hey, that's an easy way to make some money. I didn't even know, I never thought that this is something that people do. You can put a crap video together. There's no editing involved. It's just you in shoes and you're a pretty girl and you're walking around. Here I am in the shoes at this cafe. And they buy that for marketing material. Well, that's an interesting way to make a few bucks. Do you make a career out of it? Maybe. But does that start when you're younger and you don't know when to shut a game off?
Right. Yeah.
I don't know.
But social media has definitely kind of changed the game on how things work. But I think too many people think that I'm going to be the next random one that's going to hit big and I don't have to work anymore. So let me start building now. And then maybe it'll pop up. But what ends up happening is they end up chasing it, doesn't go anywhere, and now they're just addicted to something. Right?
Right, and we can't have a whole society of gamers.
What?
As a career. No, I mean as a career.
No, you're right. Yeah.
And you got a whole generation of kids that all think they're going to be Fortnite experts because they're addicted to it. They're nonstop. They're going to get good. I'm going to get good. Right. And then as they get older, they meet older people who do it as a career, who put the time in, etc., and they think, well, I'm going to do that too because that's going to be fun. I don't have to go to college. I can make money being a gamer.
The most famous gamers are not gamers; they're video editors, right? So, or I don't want to say perform. Entertainers is probably the right word. Mm-hmm. Like, there's very few actual people that make money off games. Gaming. So that would be the professionals and the pro teams.
Yeah,
that would be them because that's their job.
Yeah.
There's maybe a handful of those tops, and most of them are now entertainers too because they realize they can make more money, but that's not their main source of income.
Right.
Like, I think Scump makes like $5 million a year just in.
But there's also something to be said, and this was from when you guys were younger, the psychological side of gaming. And if you look at it, and I'd be curious to see the statistics of these 200 people that have come forward, how many of them are sons that are doing it versus girls? Because a lot of young boys your age, when they looked at it.
That's because they're on OnlyFans, Mom.
No, when they were
they didn't just go down the gaming route.
Well, I gotta believe with all the that we're hearing in education, I think it's an interesting world for young boys to go into because nobody's giving them a hard time in those worlds.
Yeah.
And they used to say young guys like it because nobody's giving them a hard time. If they failed, nobody knew it. right? And they could try again. You throw a switch and you start over again. And for young men, I used to say, why just young guys? But then as you see the progression and see where we are now, I can only imagine the crap the guys are taking in, little young boys especially, are taking in school right now because they seem to be the cause of all the ilk in the world. Who wouldn't want to escape into that? Why would you want to go play basketball just to hear more crap from people about how awful you are? Escape into this Fortnite world or whatever world you choose. I'd like to see them look into the psychology of that.
Well, that's why we're going down the VR world, right? Even more of an escape from reality.
Yes, yeah. And so, I mean, the issue is maybe it's not that it's so much addictive as it's a safe space for some of them. And it's drawing them in because maybe what you're getting in the real world ain't all that great. If parents aren't around all day, your only option is the nanny or, your siblings, or to go outside and there's nobody out there, or it's a bunch of girls who are just going to call you names.
Yeah.
And for girls, too. I mean,
Brittany, you fat pig.
Right. I mean, girls have their own issues about escaping, I can only imagine. And so that's why I say I think it's unfair to put everything on one game.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that need to step up and take responsibility before you blame a game.
For what you do to your kids. For you not having a backbone to say things to your kids.
Well, and it's a wake-up call.
The beatings Mom and Dad would give me.
I mean,
Put it away!
To our credit, I'm going to do a little back patting. Dad and I saw this early on, that this is not a good direction for kids to go in. It can be addictive. It could be something where if we don't teach them how to control it, they're going to be doing it in school when they're supposed to be studying. They're going to be doing it at night when they're supposed to be sleeping. It could easily become a kid's life. And we always said, plan your games around your life, not your life around your games or social media or whatever it happens to be. Because it's an empty life when all is said and done. You'll only get a certain number of years. You don't want to spend it in the virtual world. Someday you're going to wake up for whatever reason. You say, oh my God.
Yeah. Like, oh, wasted so much time.
Right. And there's nothing wrong with balance. We always just say it's balance. Kids are losing it, and it's going to be harder for parents because it's pervasive what you guys have nowadays, what kids have. You'll see it when your time comes, when you and your brothers have. I pity you guys, but people have to learn discipline, and they have to learn. We're animals as babies. We have to learn how to self-regulate. Who do we have teaching us? If parents don't do it, the school's going to do it. And that's how you wind up with genderqueer books. And you wind up with them teaching the wrong math, the wrong spelling, and the wrong this, wrong that.
Right.
And that's up to parents to regulate, just like games now, too.
Yeah.
So we're in agreement. I don't think it's a fair lawsuit. I'm curious to see what happens if there's an outcome to it.
I doubt, even if you do a class action like that, it's not going to... I'd be surprised to see if anything comes of it.
We'll see. Yeah. But I think it's unfair to single out one game in particular when it's a bigger issue than that. So I
wish I knew how old their kids were. I'm going to assume they're young, but...
Yeah, they didn't say in the article.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that's one of those things we're going to hear about for the next 20 years, about how addictive video games are and whatever. But nothing's going to come of it.
I don't think it's fair. I look at adults, and I think it's pathetic when I see them with the Facebook and this and that.
Yeah,
okay?
Have to post all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
I get when people would say, well, it's kind of nice to post pictures of your kids and everybody can see it. That was all nice and sweet. Who are they kidding? There are like adult women out there posting things about their dates.
Yeah. When there's too much information out there now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Let alone guys. I mean, I'm from a different generation, but these guys posting pictures of what they did last night, I don't care. Yeah. Okay. Nobody cares.
And they always have their lifespans too, in the sense of like Snapchat. No one ever posts to Snapchat anymore. That one's dying quick. The new thing's Be Real, which barely anyone uses.
Right.
So. Yeah, not to go down the social media road, but like everything is social media now. It's just the newest social media. And there's always going to be a new one.
Right.
And it's going to keep going and keep going and keep going. And you're going to see a lot of people become successful off those. Like they're going to have the next TikTok star on a different app that's going to come out in 5 years.
There was a work psychologist who was touring an office nowadays compared to the past. And he was saying to the person, I don't know, was CEO, manager, whatever, do you notice something different about the offices? This is when people were at work than when you first started out. And like, what are you talking about? Is take a look around. What do you see? And, people would always have in their little cubes, you'd have some pictures. Usually your kids, your family, whatever. So growing up, that's what you would have. And it was a talking piece. You come in and say, oh, is that your daughter? Oh, she's really cute, whatever. Do you notice a difference? And he looks around and he goes, it's all pictures of themselves.
Oh, that's interesting.
They'd be with their friend. Or it'd be them at some event.
Right.
Even if they were married. Even if they were married. Or it was them with their kids. It wasn't just the kids. And that's I think that's a product of social media, because I look at some of the pictures. The few times I've looked on Facebook when somebody would say, oh, look at something. It's like, okay, here's this girl with this friend. Here she is again with another friend. Here she is with this one, all at the same bar.
Yeah, it's all
and
the
there's
same.
like 30 pictures of that.
Yeah. The way I always see social media, and I mean not the stuff that I post, I mean like the friends. Like when I see my friends on Facebook, I don't really follow anyone of my friends on TikTok or anything else. But like my Facebook friends from when I was in high school, it's all boring. Yeah. It's stuff I don't care. I don't care that you got destroyed at a bar somewhere in the middle of Tallahassee. I don't care.
Wait till they have kids, and you're going to see, oh, little Jimmy hit a home run today.
Yeah.
And little Susie won a speech
contest.
contest.
There's nothing that you can throw out there that I'm going to get any substance out of, right? Right. It's just pictures and like maybe some video of you taking a shot with your friends. Right. It's like, do you have to post everything of you? Like, at what point? I guess the argument that people make is like, you're going to, everything's going virtual anyway. So at what point is your entire life just going to be virtual? And I think that's kind of the first steps, getting every second of your life on Facebook.
That's what I'm feeling. It used to be just to brag.
I did have that feeling
my life
too.
is better than yours, and my kid's better than yours. And see what I did last night while you were sitting at home. And they used to document it, like young girls especially, cause so much depression in them because they'd be comparing themselves. I know it was like being a teenage girl when you didn't have that stuff, and that was hard enough. I can only imagine when you got to spend your time. I mean, it takes an incredibly mature, young 12, 13-year-old to say, I don't care what she did last night. I was content reading my book. I was content staying at home. Kids don't understand that. You get it when you're older as adults because you see how empty it is. But when you're living it, you look at it like, oh, wow, they're having a great life. I'm doing nothing all day. I'm sitting at a desk doing nothing. It's a very hard thing for kids to understand. I'm seeing adults. These kids are growing up and they're still doing it. Yeah. Posting shit about their kids. We all have kids. I don't care.
Your kid's not special.
Right. And that's the irony. The more special kids that they have, they're usually not the most special of the kids. Yeah. It's the people who say nothing. Those are the ones that have the special kids, believe it or not. The ones that don't brag. That's the irony. Usually those are the parents that really have, like we always tell you, it's more impressive when you're talking to somebody and you don't know how great they are. Yeah. You just learn about it either from other people or from
like if you want to post like once in a while, like if Christmas pictures, like I'm like I like seeing that.
Right.
If you posting daily of you drinking, which I have some friends that do that, I don't care. I don't know who you know that cares.
I've known people who have posted pictures of parties of their kids and they weren't even at the party.
I know.
So other people sent them pictures for them to post for those same people who sent them to look at. Because nobody else is looking at it.
Yeah, no one cares. Yeah.
Right. Or if they do, they're like,
who's this for?
That's nice, flipping through it.
Yeah.
But when I saw pictures of somebody, it was a family person, and it was just one picture after the other of this girl at a bar in Europe with, here's one friend, here's the next friend. The same day, same bar, it's just like 15 pictures in a row. I'm like, mother of God, what is wrong with this girl?
Yeah, I'm with you. But, all right, we just did 2 hours. I have to pee really bad.
Oh.
I've had to for like the last half an hour.
I gotta finish our Christmas tree.
Yeah. The only things I have to promote, pretty much nothing. So, we're behind, well, not behind, but we don't have any speed runs. We have to do all those. We're going to do it like a seasonal sort of thing. So we have a bunch we have to do on stream, but none to post. I'm going to put out the 2 walkthroughs of the last tier of Nostalgaia tomorrow, or I'll separate them. Might just separate them. So we'll start the speed runs again.
Remember, it's a holiday weekend next weekend.
That's right. So we'll post that next week. I'll still post it, but we probably won't start any speed runs until next year. We'll do them, but posting them to YouTube will probably be pushed to next year. Other than that, I put out Zombies on Friday. I put out the cancellation video on Wednesday, and last week's podcast was on Spotify, so it's not on YouTube. Other than that, stream Monday. So this comes out Monday. So I will see you guys tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard. Social media down below. Promo codes down below. Other stream links down below. Discord questions. I don't believe we had any this week. I kind of threw it in at a weird time. But let me just make sure. Yeah, none. So we're good. But make sure you post stuff in the Discord. And that's pretty much it. So we'll end it there. Good job, Mom. Number 25. Done.